Jai Vishnu Padapanamaham Saparila Jakcharya Ashtadada Satta Shri Shrima. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Charya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Padapanamaham Saparila Jakcharya Ashtadada Satta Shri Shrima. His Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Harirastaku Ki Jai. Prem Sakha Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinang Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Chamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai. ISKCON Youth Gadam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo Haribo. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udidayet Nasta Prayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavadi Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 2, text number 33. I just speak that verse actually. There's lots of to say this verse. Vashatindre. No, I have to speak this verse because there's lots of to say. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Vashantindre. Rajaha Kopat Bhakna Mane Tivivala Gocha Dilatapatrena Trato Bhatra Nugri Natat Vashantrinde Raja Kopat Bhagna ne tividvala Gotra dila tapatrena Trato bhadra nugrinata Vashantindre raja kopa Bhagna mane tividvala Gotra dila tapatrena Trato bhadra nugritnata Vashatindre raja kopa Bhagna mane tividvala Gotra dila tapatrena Trato Badra Nugrinata Vashatindre Vachakopa Is it? Okay. Okay. Should I do that? Okay. Mataji's. I'm so sorry, because there's no purport to these words. So Ajita Prabhu just told me that usually if there's no purport to the words, so we should not speak, we should go to the next verse. So, but I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. So anyway, I will just go to the next verse anyhow. Okay. So translation to this verse. O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor had been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, and as the inhabitants of Raja, the land of cows, were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhan hill. So I'll just read the next verse myself. Sarachi Shri Karai Mishtam Manayam Rajani Mukam Gayankara Padam Reme Srinamadana Madana. Translation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. In the third season of the year, the Lord enjoyed as the central beauty of the assembly of women by attracting them with his pleasing psalms in an autumn night brightened by moonshine. Purport. Before leaving the land of cows, Vrindavan, the Lord pleased his young girlfriends, the transcendental gopis, in his Rasa Leela pastimes. Here, Uddhava stopped his description of the Lord's activities. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the third canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Om Jnana Timinandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshu uminitan yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapidan Yena Bhutare Swayanupakadama Hyan Dadati Swam Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gunum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Lakunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Chakapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindava Nishwari Vishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakau Pataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnanebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasade Gaura Bhakta Vinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sharachasi Karai Mrishtam Manayam Rajani Mukam Gayankara Padam Reme Srina Madana Madana. Translation again. In the third season of the year, the Lord enjoyed as the central beauty of the assembly of women by attracting them with his pleasing songs in an autumn night brightened by moonshine. So in the previous verse, Uddhava, he was actually telling the pastime of the pastime of Lord Krishna's lifting of Gauranga hill to Vidura. Uddhava, he was telling Vidura, saying, "O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor had been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan. And as the inhabitants of Braja, the land of cows, were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime and brother, the Govardhan hill." So there was one time, Nanda Maharaj, along with the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they have collected lots of things for worshipping King Indra. Because Nanda Maharaj they were Vaishya communities. So Vaishya communities means, the main activities is agriculture, tending the cow, trade, banking, like that, So in order to have a successful agriculture, then you have to have sufficient rain. So Nanda Maharaj, along with the inhabitants of Vrindavan, so they collected lots of items to worship King Indra, because King Indra is the controller of the rain. But somehow or other, Lord Krishna doesn't like this idea. So somehow or other, Lord Krishna convinced his father, Nanda Maharaj, not to continue that sacrifice called Indra Yagya. And he told his father, Nanda Maharaj, instead of continue with the Indra Yagya, better just use all the items, worship the cows and Govardhan hill. So he was telling his father to do like that. So out of love for the son, so Nanda Maharaj followed Lord Krishna's instructions. And then this action made King Indra very angry. So when Indra understood that the sacrifice which was to be offered by the cowherd man in Vrindavan had been stopped by Krishna, he became very angry. And he vented his anger upon the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were herded by Nanda Maharaj. Although Indra knew perfectly well that Krishna was personally protecting them, as the director of different kinds of crowds, Indra called for the Samvartaka. So he called these Samvartaka crowds. So Prabhu explained, these crowds. This crowd is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. It's a really big, very heavy, big crowds. The Samvartaka was ordered by Indra to go over Vrindavan and inundate the whole area with an extensive flood. Demonically, Indra thought himself to be the all-powerful Supreme Personality. When demons become very powerful, they defy the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. Indra, though not a demon, was puffed up by his material position. And he wanted to challenge the Supreme Controller. He thought himself, at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. So Indra, he was thinking that he's, at least at this moment, I'm as powerful as the Supreme Lord Krishna. That's the mentality of, Indra. Usually, in this material world, when someone has lots of money or occupied a, high position in the society, like, the president of the states, then, he will think that, he is Lord of everything. So similarly here, Indra is the same thing. Yeah. So Indra third, just see the impudence of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They are simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friends Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the demigods. Krishna has declared in the Bhagavad Gita that the worshipper of the demigods are not very intelligent. He has also declared that one has to give up all kinds of demigod worship and simply concentrate on Krishna consciousness. Krishna's invoking the anger of Indra and later on chastising him is a clear indication to his devotees that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness has no need to worship any demigod, even if it is found that the demigod has become angry. Krishna gives his devotees all protection, and they should completely dependent on his mercy. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna to declare it boldly that my devotee shall never be vanquished. Konteya prajanihi name bhakta pranashati. So Prabhu also said here that Krishna will always protect his devotees. Indra cursed the action of the inhabitants of Vrindavan and said, by defying the authority of demigods, the inhabitants of Vrindavan will suffer immaterial existence. Having ignited the sacrifice to the demigods, they cannot cross over the impediment of the ocean of material existence. So this is the curse, of King Indra. Yeah. Indra further declared, these cowherd men in Vrindavan have neglected my authority on the advice of this talkative boy who is known as Krishna. He is nothing but a child. And by believing this child, they have enraged me. Yeah. See how angry King Indra became. Thus, he ordered the Samantaka crowd to go and destroy the prosperity of Vrindavan. The men of Vrindavan, said Indra, have become too puffed up over their material opulence and are overconfident due to the presence of the teeny friend Krishna. He is simply talkative, childish, and unaware of the complete cosmic situation. Although he is thinking himself very advanced in knowledge, because they have taken Krishna so seriously, they must be punished. They should be destroyed with their cows. So that's the mentality of, King Indra. Yeah. So in this way, Indra ordered the Samantaka crowd to go to Vrindavan and inundate the place. It is indicated here that in the villages or outside the towns, the inhabitants must depend on the cows for their prosperity. When the cows are destroyed, the people are destitute of all kinds of opulence. Actually, Prabhu, he used to tell us that if one can have a piece of land and have a couple of cows, then all your economic problem will be solved. So here, Prabhu, he was saying the same thing. Yeah. When King Indra ordered the Samantaka and companion crowds to go to Vrindavan, the crowds were afraid of doing these mischiefs. So even the Samantaka crowd himself knows it is mischief. But King Indra assured them, "You go ahead, and I will also go, riding on my elephant, accompanied by great storms, and I shall apply all my strength to punishing the inhabitants of Vrindavan." So ordered by King Indra, all the dangerous crowds appeared about Vrindavan and began to pour water incessantly with all their strength and power. There was constant lightning and thunder, blowing of severe wind, and incessant falling of rain. The rain seemed to fall like piercing sharp arrows. By pouring water as thick as pillars without cessation, the crowds gradually filled all the lands in Vrindavan with water. So, the rain was so heavy. Yeah, here it is described that the pouring water as thick as pillars. Yeah, it reminds me of a saying in Chinese, 倾盆大雨. 倾盆大雨 is similar meaning. That means the rain is as thick as the a basin of water. You just water coming like that. Yeah, 倾盆大雨. Yeah. And there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land, because there was so much water, so there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. The situation was very dangerous, especially for the animals. Yeah. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble from the severe cold. Unable to find any other source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. So that is the mentality of the devotees. Whenever there is difficulty comes or danger comes, that makes them surrender more to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah. Just like, it reminds me Draupadi, when Draupadi was in that difficult situation, because the Kauravas want to rip away his saris in order to see her naked beauty, you see. So in that difficult situation, first of all, he tried to hold her sari, on her own. But, the sari is slowly coming out. He cannot hold. And then finally, he surrendered everything by lifting her two arms. Krishna, Krishna, chanting names of Krishna. And then Krishna immediately supplied unlimited lengths of saris in order to protect her. Yeah. Similarly, in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti, she was also praying to Lord Krishna, saying, Vipatasantu tasasvat tacha tacha jagaguro bhavato dashana yasya apunam bhava dashana. Queen Kunti was praying to Lord Krishna, saying that I wish all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. So actually, Queen Kunti is praying for the difficulties to come, because when difficulty comes, that makes her surrendered more to Krishna, so that she can see Krishna more and more. And that is the perfection of the life of the devotee, to see Krishna more and more. Yeah. So similarly, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they are doing the same thing. Yeah. And then they approach Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy rain, bowed down the herds and taking their calves underneath their bodies. They approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all inhabitants of Vrindavan began to pray to Lord Krishna. Dear Krishna, they prayed, you are all powerful and you are very affectionate to your devotees. Now, please protect us, who have been much harassed by angry Indra. So they prayed to Krishna like this. So upon hearing the prayer, Krishna could understand that Indra, being bereft of his sacrificial honor, was pouring down rain that was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds. Although all this was out of season, Krishna understood that this was a deliberate expression of anger by Indra. He therefore concluded, this demigod who thinks himself supreme has shown his great anger. But I shall answer him according to my position, and I shall teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the Supreme Lord over all, and I shall thus take away his false prestige, which has risen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and therefore it is not possible for them to forget my supremacy. But somehow or other, he has become puffed up with material power, and thus is now maddened. I shall act in such a way as to relieve him of this false prestige. I shall give protection to my pure devotee in Vrindavan, who are at present completely dependent on my mercy, and whom I have taken completely under my protection. Kunteya parijanihi name bhakta pranashati. Again, Krishna was saying here, Krishna is always protecting his devotee. I must save them by my mystic power. So thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Gauranga hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Thus, he exhibited his transcendental pastime of lifting Gauranga hill. Lord Krishna then addressed his devotees, my dear brothers, my dear father, my dear inhabitants of Vrindavan, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Gauranga hill, which I have just lifted. Do not be afraid of the hill and think that it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted by the heavy rain and strong wind. Therefore, I have lifted this hill, which will protect you exactly like a huge umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you of your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals underneath this great umbrella. So being assured by Lord Krishna, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath this great hill along with the property and animals, and they all appeared to be safe. And very mystical thing is, Krishna lifted that Gauranga hill for 7 days and 7 nights. And all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they are not feeling any hunger, thirst, nothing, It's really amazing. It's really amazing. And then King Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. So King Indra came to his sense, and he called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. So when the sky became completely cleared of all clouds and there was sunrise again, the strong wind stopped. At that time, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, now known as the lifter of Gauranga hill, Giridhari, said, my dear cowherd man, now you can leave and take your wives, children, cows, and valuables, because everything is ended. The inundation has gone down, along with the swelling water of the river. And here in this verse today, Uddhava, he is telling Vidura this story to Vidura like that, So I just stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, from Sankirtan, yes.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. My question is, sometimes we met somebody on the street and sometimes you explain about then God is so great and he can lift the, great mountain and you can see it is very difficult to understand for them that, even some of them, they accept, okay, God is great, but it's very difficult to, understand, and he can be like, come here, he's like in human form and can live that. So is it, did you have this similar kind of experience, and did you what you told to them at that time, if you have experience,
His questions, if we are telling people that God, He can lift a mountain with His hands, then people will not be able to understand. The mind blowing for them. It's like, so what is the proper way to tell people that, to convince people about this? God can lift, I would say that God is omnipotent. There are so many things so great in this world. They are all created by God, like the vast Pacific Ocean. So none of the human being can create big Pacific Ocean like that. And also there are so many stars in the sky, the sun, the moon, the earthly planet. Nobody can create. But God, He can create all those things. So if God can create all those things, wonderful, gigantic, planet, why not He can't lift a mountain with His hands? So I would try to explain in this way, Maybe somebody else have some other, thoughts. Maharaj, would you have something? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I would just add just one little thing. I think you made clear that the way you convince somebody is by love. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
But in other words, by your loving expression, you'll be able to convince them that this did happen, that Krishna held up Govardhan Hill. He didn't hold it up with his hand, he held it up with his little pinky, the left one, by the way, if you want to be precise. I mean, you don't have to be, but he had it on his hand. But most important, I think we need to understand, at least I try to, is that when a devotee is flooded and filled and overwhelmed with pure love, it's not merely a word, like I'm saying pure love, but it carries with it an expression, a feeling, like a fragrance from a flower. So it carries that with it. If a flower is dead, it has no fragrance. But when a flower is fully alive in the springtime, it carries a fragrance and it surrounds and embraces. And everyone or anyone who is there cannot help but feel the effect of that flower. Similarly, a person who is a pure devotee and is flooded with and filled with love for Krishna, he will surround, he will embrace, he will overcome persons with that love. It is a tangible thing, not merely a word. It is something you feel. It is uplifting, it's strengthening, it's overwhelming. These are just words too, but they are expressing the idea that you're not the same person that you were before the overwhelming effect of the Lord. In other words, when the Lord surrounds us, conquers us like that, we feel different than we did before the Lord did that. And when we feel that difference, we know that the Lord is powerful because we're feeling that power on ourselves. And if we're feeling that power on ourselves, we can certainly extend that idea that if the Lord has so much power to make me feel so much bliss and love and happiness and strength, then surely, if He wanted, He can pick up not only a mountain, but He could pick up the whole world with His finger. So we need to understand by love. So it is very difficult for any ordinary devotee to convince a non-devotee that this happened. Generally, they think it's nothing more than a comic book or something something make-believe, fantasy. Okay? So that's the difference. You have no power, the person thinks it's fantasy. You have power, the person will think there's something there because I'm not the same right now as I was before he started speaking and expressing.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, are there anything else? Any other questions or comments? So we will stop here. Thank you very much for coming. Gantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.